Justin. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of All Bass Creations. Give me 1 second. I want to grab another cable real quick, but while I'm doing that, make sure you hit that like button for me. But hope everybody's having a wonderful day and all that good stuff. Just getting started here, so hang in there. Feel free to ask questions and chime in where you're from and all that good stuff. Give me 1 second. Testing, testing. Hopefully y'all can hear me well now. All that good stuff. Let's go. So, kind of listening to a few combinations of sounds there. So let's go through what we got here. I kind of switched up the pedal board just slightly from yesterday to today. I told you guys it's hard for me to nail it down, exactly, even though I have pretty much all the effects I really need to do everything I want to do per se. I definitely have to limit myself. I like having just this amount of pedals, plus the foot switches, of course. But so we have the starting here at the three-way effects loop. First loop is the Empress compressor. Second loop is the MXR bass synth and the Future Impact V4 VIP. Third loop is now the Ravish sitar and the V256 vocoder. Then out of the three-way looper effects loop to the POG 3, which I'm happy to have back on the board here. They've done quite a bit of work to, get this thing back up and running. So it seems to be a lot more stable now. Sorry, you're gonna hear the keys. Give me 1 second. So, from there we got the POG 3. Like I said, an amazing piece of gear. Then we have the HX1, which is by Line 6, running into the Electro Harmonics Key 9 on the Key 9 is on the right channel and the Male 9 is on the left. And then I also have both of the ToneX ones running as well, and they're running on a JHS Colorbox V2 tone model. So pretty much I'm using my ToneX ones like having two Colorbox V2s, those are about $450 a piece. But, with the ToneX, you can have, those in stereo if you wanted to with one of them. You can run a TRS splitter out of here to TS and to regular instrument cables and do it that way. But I prefer to have them separate in case I want to do different things or EQ differently each left and right. Then we have the Mercury X here, which is doing the reverb and that sound. Almost like that chant type of sound. Hold on. Hey, come here. Yeah. That's what happens when you have kids. But I love them to death. Just got to get them to cool out, stop picking with each other. But again, I ended up taking off the deep freeze. I had the deep freeze on the board. This is the deep freeze. And kind of swapped that out for the HX1. You know, HX1 has some additional features that I think I would like to have on there. But one of the important features is when I'm using the organ sound, right? So I wanted to use an organ sound with the POG 3. Of course, you can play it with MIDI. I showed you that, guys, last night. You can really get that Leslie sound a little easier with the. So without these, pretty much looking at something like this. So you got options with this little thing. So it actually works pretty decently as an organ module, you know what I'm saying? So that's pretty cool. You know, you got along with something like that, you can have these creatives able to create some nice string sounds with the Enzo X. So, you know, having a rig like this actually allows you to really have some real flexibility on stage, you know, and it takes some real time. You know, it's not an overnight process necessarily to get this type of rig together, or even to just test it out to make sure that things are going to be the way you would like them to be on stage. It's not always easy as it seems. What's going on, folks? Appreciate that. What's going on, Laurie? Appreciate you stopping by. Appreciate the compliment. Yeah, this definitely took some time, you know. Not just to buy the pedals. It takes time to actually learn each individual pedal. So I always recommend people start out with some sort of like multi-effects unit, something that will pretty much allow you to, what is this doing? Well, you know, something like even like a Zoom B6, or if you want something smaller like a MS-60B Plus, start there. Learn how to manipulate effects with something like that first. Then move on to buying a bunch of pedals, like as you really figure out what you like and don't like. Let's see what we got here. All right, that seems to be fine. Whatever. So let's continue. And the cool thing is with pedals like the POG 3, the Future Impact, the Enzo X, they allow you to play them in addition to being able to play them with a keyboard, right? So, you know, little things like that, and I can add in the ability to sustain chords, and that I'm using the Mercury X to freeze those particular chords there. So it just allows me, even without a MIDI keyboard, you know, this type of, you know, incorporating the MIDI and the controllers, the foot controllers that you can't see them on camera, but there underneath there is the accompanying to the, this is the Luminite Graviton M1. That's connected to the Luminite F10W 10-foot switches, basically. And I also have a MIDI Captain, which is connected with a WIDI jack by CME to a CME H4 MIDI Pro. So pretty much this, pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 of those pedals are on MIDI, are running with MIDI cables rather. So not just the power, you know, MIDI is another layer to your board. So it's new cables you got to buy, new controllers. It's a whole separate thing, but it'll make your life so much easier. So I have pretty much the CME H4 MIDI Pro as the brains of the board underneath, and that gives me 2 MIDI inputs, 2 MIDI outputs. So in one of those MIDI outputs, the Mercury X, Enzo X, Future Impact, POG 3, and the HX1 are all on that one MIDI output, allowing me to, I can switch sounds here as well, allowing me to have different sounds available to me. I can switch it with my feet. So you know, it makes it very convenient, but, you know, the power you want to make simple, right? So I'm using a Canvas Power 15, which is powering all of these pedals, plus the MIDI controllers, the CME H4 MIDI Pro, which is built into the board. And what else is running on? Something else is running on MIDI. I mean, USB, because the Graviton, the H4 MIDI Pro, both of those are running on USB. Oh, the MIDI controller is being powered by it as well. So MIDI controller, Graviton M1, and the CME H4 MIDI Pro built into the board are all running on the Canvas Power 15 on the USB, one USB slot with a USB hub built into the board. So, you know, that made the power very simple. Then you just run the power cables. But from there, you want to consider if you want to have effects loops. Effects loops also mean you need to have more cables, you know. So these are things to consider when you're building your setup, you know. And like I said, you don't have to do this all at once. You just, you know, you gradually make your setup evolve over time, you know what I'm saying? But for every effects loop, it's like its own little pedal board. So I got to have a cable coming out of here, going into this pedal, then a cable coming out of this pedal going back into here. So, you know, same thing for the next effects loop. Pedal cable comes out of here, goes to here, here, back to the red loop. This loop, cable comes out into these two pedals, back into here. And like I said, the reason I have that is so I can have some control over how many pedals are in my chain at any given time. So right now, everything that's in my chain is all the time has true bypass. So everything that's always in the chain is the not always on, but always in the chain would be the POG 3, HX1, the Key 9, Mel 9. Both of those are running left and right. So stereo, stereo, left, right, stereo, left, right, stereo to the Jamman Solo HD. So, you know, that's the audio path pretty much of everything. And then to the Canvas stereo line isolator, which is pretty much my stereo DI box, and it also allows me to split to amps whenever I need to, so I can have the amps and PA, no compromise with sound or anything. Even when it's going to the PA system, is going at line level, so I don't have to push my gain of like my ToneX ones, and it keeps this quiet setup quiet. That thing dead silent, ain't it? That's what happens when you put good power supply. Even though I'm powering all of this with one power outlet. You know what I'm saying? Because the Canvas 15 has 15 outputs at 500 milliamps and isolated outputs. That is an important thing when you're setting up pedal boards. I think some people underestimate the power supply. Please don't spend all this money on all these pedals and then get a cheap power supply. Why? Why would you do that? And Canvas Power 15 is like, I caught that for $215 on sale, but you know, it's for what it does, it's $289 regular. I think you really can't beat that. It's a great sound. I mean, well, not a great sound. A great sound for a power supply is no sound, but it powers everything. I'm only using 20% of the power, even though I'm using all these pedals and the 3 MIDI devices, you know, USB MIDI devices as well. So, you know, that's the extent of the power. But I would always recommend you get a great power supply. You know, if you can spend $600 on a pedal, why not just drop the $200-300 you know, to power all these pedals. All these pedals cost a good amount of money, you know. So with nothing really being cheap, you don't want to try to skip out and get like one of them cheaper $60 power bricks that ain't really, you know, it might be underpowering your pedals, adding noise into your pedals. So take the power supply very seriously. You know, I'm serious about my power supplies. All right. So, and then in terms of the cabling, I actually use some regular old bulk cable, GSL. I think that is GSL audio. I bought a big 300 foot spindle of just cable, bulk cable. Then I bought a bunch of right angle flats and just the regular right angle ones, depending on what you need. And I make my cables custom, you know, so like all of these cables, all these cables like this and stuff like, you know, I make all these myself, and it saves me a ton of money. Like, you want to really save some money, get you a bulk thing of cable and get you a soldering iron and get you some the plugs, you know, TS plugs. These are just regular instrument plugs, you know, and learn how to solder just a little bit. Get you some heat shrink as well. I like to add, especially for these flathead ones, you want to I use a bit of heat shrink in there. You know, some of them you can see it, some of them you can't. You ain't gonna be able to see it on camera anyway, but you know, I use a bit of heat shrink in there, and that actually makes this joint, this little area right here between the metal and the rubber a little bit more robust to keep the cables in better condition and unplugging and, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, they get a little bit of tug on them. If you can't, when you finish soldering, if you can't tug it a little bit like that, then you didn't put it on right, you know. So you want to make sure that you solder your cables properly, and then once you get the hang of that, you know, and it's annoying. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's annoying doing all of these cables. This is 30, 40 cables here, you know what I'm saying? Easy. So keep that in mind. But when you make them custom, you don't have so much extra cables lying around. You know, it makes the sound like nice, clean, pristine sound. You know, spend the extra 150, 200 bucks on a nice line isolator. It don't have to be the canvas stereo one, but that one works amazing. Sounds great. So, you know, but when it comes to the setup of the audio, that and the power, that's gonna be the difference between your pedal board being usable on stage and it being just a bedroom project. Always, it should be nice, clean sound. Let me switch here for your bass. Nice. Should be a nice, clean bass. See how that's nice and clean? And like I said, that's the easiest way to get you a nice clean sound with your effects. And you, when you're switching from between patches and stuff, you also want to take some time to kind of slightly volume match your presets. You know, I'll go back through the MIDI setup in a second, but even when you are creating the presets on the individual pedals, because before you can get to creating the presets for the MIDI controllers, which is all the pedals combined, you know, for me it is, at least, you know, most of the time. I do have some other presets in there for different things and controlling different things, but primarily the goal is to have the combinations of the pedals programmed into the MIDI controller. You just step on stage and you can, with your feet, switch to a chorus. Right? Or switch to a flanger. Phaser. Or, you know, the envelope filter. So, you know, the ultimate thing is to have, you know, things set up to make it easier. So as you're making each individual preset, you know, casually, you know, always save while you making things, you know, in case anything happens. But you want to be checking with the other presets that you're making on that pedal to make sure things are kind of volume match. And even still, you're going to go back and have to adjust the volume of each individual preset on each individual pedal to when they're all combined to make sure that it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And when you switch it between patches, you don't want these huge volume jumps. You know what I'm saying? Some things stand out more than others. You know what I'm saying? If you're, you know. You know, certain things just stand out a little bit more, but you always want to kind of make sure that things stay within reason, and this is why you have to spend so much time with your gear, your instrument, various things like that, so you can then be way more comfortable on stage. And the envelope, here's the big reveal. Here's the secret sauce to my envelopes. The Meris Series X pedals. They both have the ladder and a state variable filter in there, but the ladder filter I turned into a envelope filter through the modifier. So I can have it as that same filter, I can turn it into an LFO filter. I can turn it into a double LFO filter, LFO-A and LFO-B, with various things, and assign those to any of the parameters for the filter. I can also have a sample and hold, which will give you a random type filter. The envelope, you know, based on the dynamics and things of your sound. Then you have the sequencer in there. So I can have a sequence filter as well. That same beautiful, gorgeous filter that you're hearing. So this one is Enzo X, right? And like I said, I can create the same exact filter setting in the Mercury X. But with the Mercury X, I get this vowel mod, right? And the vowel mod gives me this, that bass balls filter, but it puts it, I use a LFO to create that, you know what I'm saying, instead of the envelope. So LFO is just opening, using that ooh-ah type sound. So even if you, this is a reverb pedal. Not only is it a reverb pedal, but it also finishes off all my sounds. The reason why that filter's cutting through like that is because of the Negus preamp I created on the Mercury X, which makes all my bass sounds cut through like that. That's why all my bass sounds are cutting, because I'm using on the Mercury X, I'm using the compressor link, which is at a 10:1 ratio with a slow attack and fast release. And I'm running that in parallel compression, so half 50-50, dry and wet. So half dry, half wet. And then I have a preamp on there and a high pass filter to clean up the sound even more. So it just makes it cut. Along with on the ToneX ones, I'm running a color box into a Ampeg SGT. And that's all in one tone model. And that's the tone model you're hearing there, which gives a nice firm bass sound, but, you know, also gives you that nice Ampeg grit in there too. So it's making all the sounds just cut. And it's also giving a bit of, giving some overdrive in there as well. So that overdrive is giving that grittier sound to it. And then you use the mix page to mix in your dry signal. So you're hearing some of my dry signal there, and you're also hearing the filter. So without it, I mean, well, it's not even a filter. That's actually a modulation. It just sounds like a filter. Yeah. And here's a little tip. And something I didn't know until recently. A lot of these effects and stuff, modulations, filters, pitch shifting, all of that stuff is delay. I did not know that. Even reverb, all of that stuff is made from delays in various amounts. The phaser, the flanger, chorus, all of it is made from delays. So, which is crazy, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's just a little tidbit there if you didn't know, all right, because I didn't know that. And when I found out from the team at Meris, I was like, yeah, that's incredible. I didn't know that. So, but here's the bass sound without the Mercury X on, but then you kick it on. Come on, man. Like, come on. That's better than the bass balls to me, to be honest. That's the Enzo X, and the Enzo X filter section literally took all of the filter pedals off my board. So it took the C4 synth, the Source Audio C4 synth, Spectrum, both of those off the board. The Electro-Harmonics bass balls, the Electro-Harmonics Blurst, the MXR bass filter. It just took all of those off the board because it's just, I mean, why do I need them? Like, this is the perfect envelope sound for me. And it cuts live. When I say that joint was cutting at the gig, yo, that joint, I mean, it's the richest sounding thing I could think of in terms of an envelope. It just sounds perfect. And this is actually a Moog style filter as well. So you get it's a negative 24 dB filter in there. So that's what you're hearing. And it's just a touch of, yeah. And then you get the valve mod from the Mercury X. And for some reason, it always, I don't know what it is with that effect right there, but it's like it always catches you at the right moments. It's like no matter when you start playing, it's like you can't even jump in at a bad time with it, even though it's running on an LFO. Normally, it felt like you would have to have something like that synced, but it's just like. That's just nasty. That is just nasty. I mean, how that's gonna be a reverb pedal? This is what I'm saying. It's $600 pedal, right? And I know that seems like a heck of a price tag for a reverb pedal. It ain't just a reverb pedal. It can be your envelope filter. It can be your modulation pedal because it's got a 78, 79 chorus in there. Let me see what else we got in this joint. I know. First of all, the valve mod and the hazy mod are by themselves some of the best modulations I've ever heard. Along with the chorus, the flanger, the phaser, the tremolo, and vibrato. It's got all between the Enzo X and the Mercury X. I have all the modulations and filters I ever need. I don't need anything to sound better than that. Like that's as good as any chorus, any that type of effect. And anything I want to do to manipulate it, I can easily do that all within the pedals, you know what I'm saying? So it makes a huge difference. And, when it comes to things like the Pog 3, as a octaver, it does so much. You know what I'm saying? And then you got all the vintage bass synths right here that you'd ever need with the Future Impact. You know what I'm saying? Like you literally got just first of all, that's nasty. Yeah. mean, come on, like, and that is the future impact with the what's this? It's the future impact with that, preset I was using on for just the regular bass. So, but even without that, the future impact bass synths is. Just dirty McDirty, you know what I'm saying? So like having these particular types of pedals, that's why I use so many synth and like really capable pedals. I know it can get expensive, but when you're using pedals that don't just, why? I mean, and this something I had to do. These days you don't have to do this. I spent a lot of money buying Octaver pedals, and let me see. Let me put it. Oh no! Made me drop my pedals, guys. So I don't even know if y'all can see this, but all these different pedals, and this is all like pedals I'm selling and not using anymore, and there is more. Oh no. These are supposed to be on here a little better than this. Oh no. It's all stuff that's either going to be sitting around, won't make the pedal board, and I have a lot of them. There's a lot of these joints. Right. But yeah, so many of them. Probably just got about 15, 20 pedals just hanging around. You feel me? So, like, all that add up, man. All that type of stuff adds up. And over time, you just have a bunch of pedals. So, having pedals like I don't particularly worry about analog versus digital. Like, come on. Like, you just heard that envelope filter. Don't nobody care if that's analog or digital. It sounds amazing. That's the key. And if something like an Enzo X is going to save you a ton of space and time, even though it is a bigger pedal, for a bassist, this can be your bass synth pedal. You know what I'm saying? Because even if it's plenty let me see. You have some nasty bass synths with this joint. Same sound you can use with your bass as well. Got the future impact on. Effect. So, there too. You know what I'm saying? You got bass synths there. You got your modulations, your filters, your drives. And the drive, and when I say every single effect in the Enzo X and Mercury X is great, not good, great. I mean, it's just I'm just amazed at how good they are. You know what I'm saying? In general, compared to, and I know sometimes we look at things like the HX1. Well, it has a bunch of different types of chorus, and this. You're not gonna use all them different types of choruses. You're gonna find one, maybe two that you like, and that's what you're gonna use for chorus. Like 9 times out of 10, like what I'm saying, because you can do detune, you can do all the different types of chorus with this detune and LFO. You can even do like an envelope chorus type sound where you trigger maybe the depth of the chorus by how your dynamic. So you can make it a dynamic chorus if you like to, a dynamic flanger. You can, because of the modifiers, it gives you all those different variations of different types of those modulations and filters. Like I was saying before, you got an LFO filter. All this is made from the same filters. You know what I'm saying? It's just how you're manipulating the LFO, meaning it's doing like that effect was doing, where it's a synced time, a defined amount of time that it's opening and closing, or the envelope, which responds to your dynamics, the sampling hold in there, or it's random, and then the sequence. And then bam, you're good from there. You know what I'm saying? And then you can also use that same envelope filter as a wah by assigning the frequency cutoff to the expression pedal. So, you even got your wah wah and filter, expression effect in there all in one go. It definitely makes a difference. Let me see what we got here. I don't know why none of my comments are popping up on my computer. Let me check my phone. Well, I think what you mean is envelope. That's what a manual filter. It doesn't really exist. Not really called a manual filter. I think you mean like with an expression pedal. So if you're using it, that's what I was just explaining. With the Meris effects pedal, this Enzo X or the Mercury X, you don't really have to decide between which one you like more. You actually get, you can assign the filter to the expression pedal or to an envelope. So you can have an envelope filter. The envelope filter is what you would call, what you probably call an automatic filter, envelope or the LFO. So let me just do a quick demonstration of that. And this is how you get the most. Find some pedals you get the most out of, not just one thing. The Pog 3 is going to do a ton of different things. Enzo X, Future Impact is going to give you a ton of all these different vintage bass sounds and bass synths. You know what I'm saying? So just try to get some things that allow you to do a lot of different stuff. ToneX 1 save me space and give me a whole bunch of different sounds. But let's go envelope filter here. So we're going to take that from the envelope. And this just so you guys can kind of, if for those of you that don't understand what the envelope filter versus LFO filter and all that is, we're going to go through a little bit of that real quick. So right now it's functioning as a envelope filter. So it's going to give you that. Like that type of sound. And that responds to my dynamics, how much the filter opens. So I can take it from there. I can put that, assign that frequency cut off to the sample and hold. See what I had this on 37 and 79. So we'll go 37 and 79. So now you can hear it. Kind of turns into a random filter now. Just doing whatever it wants to do, but at a certain tempo. But pretty much it's opening and closing that filter the way randomly, whenever, you know, it's a random number generator type thing. And then you got the LFOs. We'll do the same values, 79 and 37. So you see, like now it's moving at a consistent rate, opening, closing consistently, and it's to a time. And I can also set that to a note division. I can change the shape of it as well. So basically, just by changing the modifier in which I'm assigning, changing the modifier I'm assigning to the filter frequency cutoff, it allows me to change the type of filter interaction I'm having. So I can have it at a steady, consistent LFO, where I can also assign it to a particular BPM, where it's opening and closing on time. Say I want to like that's how you would do that with an LFO filter. Now, if you wanted that, like that classic 70s thing we were kind of doing in the beginning, like classic envelope filter pedal, assign it to the envelope. You want a random filter, sample and hold. And you also have the sequencer. So the sequencer is similar to the LFO, but let me see. Let me get this back to off. So with the LFO, the sequencer, it's not random, like the sample and hold, but you can set the filter to open, and you can set these different modifiers to various things, pitches, all types of stuff. So it's not just the filter, but I'm just using the filter as an example. Set them to all different values, some really opposite values so we can hear things kind of crazy. And this is a 16-step sequencer, so if you don't want 16 steps, you can set it to skip. repeat that pattern. I can change the speed of that as well. Let's put it to a note value. See how it's like. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that is a really amazing feature that you can do with the Meris pedals is assign. I can do that with the modulations. I can do that with the drive sounds. I can do that with the filter sounds. Like I can do it with the in the Mercury X they have compression, the limiting, they got diffusion, swell, freeze. I can assign those modifiers to any of that stuff. So like having a unique setup like that within each pedal definitely is something that to think about, you know, other than the price tag, because the way they sound justifies the price tag. What they are capable of, how all the boundaries come off of your sound, you know, adventures and stuff. You know, it just is they're definitely worth it. You know what I'm saying? And then when you combine them with the most featured pack octaver out, the most featured pack vintage bass synth pedal out. You know what I'm saying? You combine these things along with like the amazing Mel 9 Key 9 and these two Rabbit Sitar V56. You start adding these little things together and you start to have an outrageous rig that's not redundant. You notice none of these pedals are like duplicating what any of the other pedals do. The closest thing on here, these are running left and right, so that's different. These two, the MXR bass synth sounds nothing like a vintage bass synth or keyboard. This sounds like a vintage bass synth, like a Moog or something like that. This just sounds like a bass synth that is its own thing. So, they don't have the same purpose to do the same things per se. So that you try to get some versatile pedals and get some versatility into your setup to where, it's your regular just old bass gigs. You really don't need much. Like, let's be honest, we don't need much compression, preamp, limiting, and you pretty much out the door. You know what I'm saying? Because the preamps gonna have EQ in them. So, but when you start getting into wanting to get some different sounds, a lot of times we're trying to stack effects and this and that to get to these different pad type of sounds. You can just readily have access in something like an Enzo X. So trying to get to those sounds, like trying to get to this sound. Trying to get to that sound before now is virtually impossible, but we'll spend time and money trying to buy all these different pedals and stuff with, try to consider, when you're looking at certain pedals, I don't really dig a lot of the multi-effects pedals like that. You know what I'm saying? Because they get redundant. Like, So how I put it, most of them guitar pedals that they just threw a few extra bass stuff onto. That's what a lot of them do. But you know, some of them are bass specific, but even still, it's like they never have all the effects you want in them. So it's just like, yeah, you know, you'd be better off getting to the actual sounds you want, like an Enzo X. If you want the sitar sound, the Rabbit sitar is going to get you. It's going to get you so, you know, you can get to some amazing sound. But why you know, you want to look for the best tip I could tell you is, you know, if you don't spend too much money trying to go through a million drive pedals. Like it ain't nobody hearing all that little distinct drive. You get you a good drive pedal, and you know that's why, like I said, I use the Enzo X and the Mercury X. Also, I use the Future Impact for overdrive and distortion as well, and those work out fine. You know, I don't have to add any additional pedals to do that. These already have them. I already have the preset programmed in there for that, and then I just switch to it, and I can do it through MIDI. So, you know, one of the best tips is, you know, don't start out with something that where you can really explore different sounds and stuff without like the MS-60B plus. You know what I'm saying? If you're just getting into pedals. MXR vintage bass synth and thoughts on the Aguilar grape phaser. I really, to be honest, I really don't have much thoughts on those pedals. Like they don't cut it for me, so I don't really think about it. Like the MXR vintage bass octave, is it gonna give me a sound that I want? I have a Poly Blue that I'm actually selling. You know what I'm saying? Like got MXR Poly Blue right here, beautiful pedal. You know, but this don't even make the pedal board. You got a Pog 3 right here. And before that I had a Hog 2, so these don't really make the pedal board in terms of they don't have all the functionality and everything I would like in terms of presets and everything else. But they're good enough, you know, to get you that little octave sound, you know what I'm saying? But to be honest, you can get a just as good of a octave sound with the bass synth, MXR bass synth. So if you want to save some money from, you know, having to buy like an extra MXR bass envelope filter, MXR Poly Blue octave. Heck, I even got the MXR layers over here. You know what I'm saying? I definitely like MXR stuff. It's just, you know, it ain't making the pedal board right now. Ain't gonna make the pedal board right now. I mean, now, like I said, by the time you buy all them phasers and have all those separate pedals, you could have just had something like an Enzo X. And that's gonna be your bass synth pedal. It can be an octaver as well. So I don't think y'all even understand. the extent of things that Enzo X can do. It can be your octave pedal, your synth pedal, and I mean mono octave pedal and polyphonic octaves as well. Polyphonic side has a little bit of latency to it though, but you can literally do all of that with the Enzo X. It used to have a octave down setting in here. First of all, check out this bass synth on there. So getting the Enzo X, you're getting the octave pedal, you're getting a synth pedal, you're getting and you get a full ADSR with the envelope sound of the oscillators and the filters, meaning you can control the attack, the decay, the sustain and release of the filter and the actual oscillators. Then you also get drives in there. You get the modulation section and the ambient section in there along with the modifiers. The ambient section has stereo delay and 3 different types of the Prism algorithm that's in the Mercury X, which is my favorite in general. So yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's $600, but you getting, trust and believe, it's not advertised as a multi-effects unit, but it definitely will turn into a multi-effects unit. You're going to want to use those chorus and filters and stuff individually, but let me see. Let me potentially mess up one of my settings for you guys. Let's turn this into... Let's go mono synth first. Yeah, definitely the Enzo X save you some money. By the time you buy that MXR vintage bass octave and the Aguilar phase, that's like $400 right there. I'm like, what is that? That was the rarest. Great, make a quick little, you know what I'm saying? Lower giant, yeah. Stain on there, release on there. Tag. We just want all sustain. We want none of that. Build me a quick little octave patch. Put a little chorus on that thing. All right, let's see what we got from here. So we want to open that up a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that. And that was a steal. That was a good job. That's a good deal. You got them both used $100 and the other 120. Yeah, that's not bad. But you know what I'm saying? In totality, by the time you get that, and then you get a filter pedal, and then you get the chorus pedal, and then you get the flanger pedal, then you get the tremolo pedal, and then you get the vibrato pedal, and you see what I'm saying? By the time you get all these different things, you could have just went with something that was a little bit pricier, but was going to be exactly what you needed for a long time to come. Now the Pog 3, I do love it, but I can't recommend it to you guys wholeheartedly. Oh, I ain't even see all these comments. I'm not trying to ignore it. I don't want y'all to think I'm ignoring. I told y'all some of the comments they're not coming through. That's irritating. But yeah, by the time the Pog 3 has, I think they worked out the glitching issue, but give me a few weeks and make sure it's stable, and if it holds up a few weeks, it should be fine. But I only had it for 2 days before, and I had to send it out back up to Electro Harmonics and had them repair it. But they got it back to me, and it's been working amazing so far. And that, like I said, no other Octaver has this many features, and the tracking is phenomenal. But the tracking on the Enzo X is phenomenal as well. So let me see what we got. To them opposed to more acknowledgement. The Enzo X. Enzo X definitely for bass. You definitely want the Enzo X over the H90 for bass. One, you're going to save $300. You can get the eight. If you're going to spend that, you might as well save up another $300 and get a Mercury X and a Enzo X for $12 versus paying $900 for a H90, and you'll have those two. I guarantee can complete whatever setup you're running. But let me see. So no, I'm actually running Aguilar preamp with a EMG pickup. I only have one pickup in this bass. It's just this bridge pickup. This is actually just a ramp. So, but a lot of the problem you're probably having isn't the pickups or the basses. It's how you're EQing them. So you need to cut the bass you need to cut the bass and boost the high mids of the bass as well, and make sure that your treble is flat. Your highs are flat, so you don't. It's not giving you a whole bunch of extra noise. Then something like a fret wrap will help you, even if you're a clean player. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a clean player, but it helps when I'm using things that are tracking to just ensure that none of them false notes come through. But and I find it helps make it feel more natural when you're playing with those. But yeah, in terms of the OC2, I had an OC5. Just recently sold the OC5. But yeah, definitely check your EQ settings. That's primarily the recipe. Cut the bass. You know what I'm saying? Like, from flat, you want to go down to probably about 25% of the bass, the overall bass knob. So if you got a middle, go down halfway from middle to nothing, and then boost your high mids, and I guarantee that will help you out tremendously, along with the fret wrap. You know what I'm saying? It definitely helps, like octave synths. Only synth I ever ran into that recipe didn't work for. Instead of the high mids, it was the low mids, is the Enzo X. Enzo X, I cut my bass and I boost my low mids, and it tracks way better and all, perfectly. So, let me see what else we got. Mercury, Meris, Mercury X. Yeah, Meris is an underrated company. Like it's if you know Meris, you like ain't no way more people aren't talking about these pedals. But it is, man. And not only that, but the Enzo X, you can also just decide that you're going to play it with the keyboard if you would like to as well. So you got synth sounds, and it automatically switches between your bass signal and MIDI from the keyboard as well. So you can play synth bass, you can make your pads, you can have all your bass effects. You still got delay and reverb in here, and not just any old crappy delay or reverb. Some of the best delay and reverb, you know what I'm saying, like quality wise. And that's all. And you got some of the best drives in here. You got 3 different types of drive: a tube drive, a transistor, and an op amp. And you get a bit crusher in there and a ring mod, all in here. And the ring mod is stupid. First of all. But yeah, that's the octave down if you want that option as well. But let's go to that ring mod real quick. Where that joint at? Where the ring mod? I ain't create a patch with the ring mod? That's crazy. Oh, that's wild. I know I have a preset in here, but I didn't create a preset within the MIDI function here. Let me see. Find this joint. It's the best ring mod ever. And mind you, the POG 3 does have an amazing filter as well that you can have a low pass, band pass, and high pass with. But the Enzo X to me the filters are better in there. First of all, I made an envelope ring mod. An envelope ring mod. An envelope ring mod that's triggered by with every note. First of all, come over here though. Oh my goodness, that's the best ring mod I ever heard. So, just this type of setup isn't really just to be used for bass. This is and I definitely appreciate y'all subscribing. Who is that? Let me see. KDOLRG. Definitely appreciate you subscribing. Make sure you hit that like button while y'all here as well. But let me see what we got on the screen. We're struggling to get a good envelope with digital. Yeah, my source audio was a suite, but sold that when I got a HX1, which I sold for an anagram. So, let me say this, though. Like, I've been seeing y'all. YouTubers, a lot of YouTubers, and not myself per se. I am in. I do have a connection with Meris that we've recently just started, but my love for Meris started when I bought the Enzo X before I ever really had even heard of the company, and I just loved the Enzo X so much and made so many videos about it. They just reached out to me, and made, I spent hours. That thing had me on a grip for months, like just learning and creating new sounds. Like the Enzo X, just it it'll have you in that lab creating for real. But don't you don't always the YouTubers, a lot of times they have association with people and they got loyalties to people because of money. This is a business for all of us. I make money off of YouTube and Patreon and all that stuff. So, but I give you an honest review, you know what I'm saying? And I mean honest. I don't just crap on something because another company may have sent me some pedals. Or, I'm sure some of the bigger YouTubers are actually directly getting paid from those companies. I'm almost certain of it. Wink, wink. You know who did this one, and you know how this rolled out, right? This pedal. And you also, if you're into YouTube and stuff, and you also seen how, like, a lot of times the HX Stomp is being pushed, even though it only has a few bass effects in it. It ain't really a bass pedal, but somehow all the bassists think that that's going to solve their problems, and it's whatever. Not a bad pedal, but not all worth all the hype they doing on YouTube. But they're also in cahoots and in a relationship with Line 6. So, keep all that in mind when you seeing people tell you that other stuff. Like, I know, some certain people saying that Anagram, they didn't like that. I haven't tried it, so you've never heard me say I don't like it. You feel me? How you gonna like something? How you gonna dislike something you never tried? Like, you ain't even give it a chance. Like, when people ask me about it, I haven't touched it. So I don't know. It may be great. It may not. Any thoughts on the Dark Glass series, Micro Tubes, Harmonic Boost? Yeah, I stay away from buying all that extra stuff. You really don't need that stuff, to be honest. Like, if you get you something like a ToneX 1, and you can get all those sounds. Like, literally, it's a hard thing to explain. Like, I have a bunch of preamps. I got a color box sitting here on the desk. I'm talking through. Got a SGT. Got an Aguilar AG preamp. Gensler Magellan. Eden WTDI. I have all these different pedals. Preamp pedals, along with the different bass amp heads I have. But yeah, I try not to. None of that even makes the pedal board anymore, because the ToneX 1s has copies of all that stuff. So get you something like a ToneX 1, make you copies of that stuff. You don't have to keep it on your pedal board per se. And it allow you to get all those same exact tones that you want from those exact pedals. So that's what I would recommend overall. Dark Glass stuff seems to be pretty quality, but if you're not just going for a distorted sound, like, I'm not in the Dark Glass clean tone per se. Dark Glass, feel free to reach out and change my mind. Hey. Oh yeah, I got a ton of videos on the Enzo X. It's a whole playlist and everything, but it's actually hours and hours of me doing stuff with the Enzo X ambient bass effects morning series I do, where I actually just do more playing than talking. You can check that out, and you'll see me using the Enzo X in a lot of different ways, especially over the last year. Yeah, and I don't know why they keep pushing that joint over I do like that Dark Glass took the time to make a bass, multi-effects pedal. I am tired of seeing companies make these guitar pedals and then just be like, yo, all right, here's 5 bass effects. Now it's a bass effects, multi effects too. It's not. Like, dog, like this HX1 here has mostly guitar effects. The reason why it keeps getting put off my board is because I can only use it for a few effects. I was using it for I love the delays and reverbs in here, but the Mercury X is better at that, way better. And it's not even close. You know, the Mercury X is really in a league of its own above everybody else, you know what I'm saying? So is the Enzo X and what it does. But this HX1, I pretty much, the main reason I was using it was the delay in the reverbs, and that got counteracted when I got a Mercury X. But other than that, it's a analog flanger in the modulation section that I really like, but that's the only modulation that I like for bass in there. Then, not saying that you can't use none of, you can use whatever you want, but does it really give you a nice full bass presence in the music, and how the filters and stuff I showed you guys in the Enzo X does? It doesn't. The drive section is mostly guitar drives and distortions and stuff. It's like 5 bass distortions, overdrive pedals, and they aren't really that good. The Noble preamp in there is okay. You know what I'm saying? But none of the compressors are really that good compared to like the Source Audio Atlas compressor. Even the compressor is no comparison to the Mercury X. Like the Mercury X compressor and limiter actually beat, for me, it took the Atlas compressor off my board. That's another pedal it took off the board. But the compression in here really ain't that great because it really ain't for bass, you know, and that's very irritating, you know. But I do like certain little sounds in there. They okay. It ain't nothing crazy though. Compared to something like the Zoom B6, right? The Zoom B6 has all those effects in there are pretty much usable because they're all designed for bass. Like I just hate when I just hate the fact that Zoom gets a bad rep from a lot of, or like not a bad rep, but like people look at it as like a lower company, but they'll take the time to make some real serious bass gear for us. Like the MS-60B is a cheaper pedal, but for a beginner, that's a serious pedal. You can make some serious sounds with a MS-60B Plus. Like, and I have an MS-60B Plus in here, and an MS-70 CDR Plus, and a Zoom B6. The Zoom B6 sounds amazing. Like, it has twice the sound quality, you know, of the multi-stomp pedals that, you know, the MS-60B Plus, MS-70 CDR Plus. So, you know, it definitely sounds great. And it's an audio interface. Yes, it's big, but most of the time you're going to be carrying the joint by itself. It's, you know, it's a great pedal, and it's meant for bass. Not only that, but it's got DI types. You know, come on now. We don't need all that stupid routing stuff. We need actual bass effects. Like, I don't need all that stupid route. I need 8 outputs, and I need to route every little single sound to a different output. I don't do all that. And most bass players don't even run stereo. So what are we really talking about here? Like, I would really love to see them put a real foot forward for the bass community. You know what I'm saying? But they won't. They ain't paid us no mind this far. Maybe in the future. Dark Glass added amp models for Mark Bass, SWR. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, see, you see all the amp models they added. And mind you, Zoom already came, the B6 already came with those. But I would hope that the anagram has even higher quality than the Zoom B6. I would hope so. I haven't tried it again yet. So this is not an anagram endorsement. This is just, I saw like, it's almost like there's a war against the Dark Glass with some of the bigger YouTubes, because maybe Dark Glass didn't send them stuff or won't pay them or whatever the case. Or maybe they anagram is taking too many HX stomp sales. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the case is, but, you know, from what I heard with the anagram, it definitely sounds good. definitely sounds good. You know, I got to have it in my hands to see what it really do. But definitely definitely check out the Enzo X for sure. Like you're gonna need to put the X on it because there's an Enzo pedal. That's the old one. The regular Enzo pedal is the old one. The Enzo X is this bigger, newer one. Same thing with the Mercury X. But what's the difference between them? So this is a synth pedal technically, and this is a reverb pedal, but they both are capable of doing drive, filters, modulations, delay, and reverb. And this has pitch shifting in here as well. It has great pitch shifting in there. It even has a dual pitch shifter called lo-fi where you can shift your left side and your right side to different pitches. So this is more reverbs, but this finishes off your sounds very well, like I said. So if I wanted, bam, come here, just have a nice bass sound. This is without it. So it just like adds a nice microscope. You know, thank you. I appreciate that. Like adds a nice microscope with that compressor link. So it even has two different types of compressor, two different types of limiter in the reverb pedal. You know what I'm saying? The Mercury X. It's got a compressor link, which compresses each side separately, and a regular compressor, which compresses both sides the exact same way. So, and the same thing with the limiter and the limiter link. I mean, I'll just go through a few of these patches. Let me see. So this is just the Enzo X. Mercury. Even though this is a reverb pedal, like I said, it's not just a reverb pedal, it's also one of the best delay pedals ever. It's definitely one of the best drive pedal, filter pedals, modulations in there are sickening, you know, amazing. You know, and then you still got six, I think it's six different, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's six different reverb algorithms, but the pre-delay section, you can just customize it because you can put those filters and those drives and modulations at any point in the chain. You can put them on your dry signal. You can put them on just the feedback loop of the delay. You can put them in the pre-tank right before it goes into the reverb. The signal goes into the reverb. You can put it after the reverb. And, you know, you could just do so many things with it. That's why I was like, yeah. Yeah, you probably won't, not as a bassist like that. Like, I mean, I would much, the Enzo X and the Mercury X, you get those two, you will feel like you got your money's worth. Start with just getting the Enzo X, right? Because it's going to, and the reverb and the delay in there, you can also, are like, it's just like a really skimmed down version of the Mercury X reverb section. But you can get some great full sounds out of the Enzo X. You don't have to have a Mercury X right away. So I would say, as a bassist, start with the Enzo X. And if you're having trouble, if you want, you can grab my preset pack from my Patreon. I have a preset pack for the Future Impact and the Enzo X. Mercury X has got one. I was going to have one coming out as well. The POG 3 is going to have a preset pack. It's 11 different preamp packs available for the ToneX ones, as well as I got the double ToneX double preamp packs coming out for ToneX. All those Zoom pedals, preamp packs already on Patreon. What else? C4 synth, got a C4 synth pack. Yeah, but all that's on there. Can you explain how you utilize the Rabbit sitar? I use it just pretty much for anything I want to use that needs a sitar sound. It really just depends on the occasion, but so you can use it for pads, you can use it for soloing. Just depends. Like if you don't want such a harsh sound, you want to just use like. That type of thing, so you can use it for that type of stuff. You can add it to a pad that's layered with like the key 9, mel 9, things like that. So a lot of times it might not be just the Rabbit sitar by itself. I might have the mel 9 doing strings with it, and have the Mercury X doing like the like a vocal, some sort of like vocal delay reverb situation over there, and just add all that as layers. So for building sounds, you want to build layers, not just complete sounds, not just the presets over the presets in the pedal. You want to create them so you got some flexibility, but for the most part, when you start adding things together, you want to play around with the mix and the balance of things. I think you'll find you need a lot less of things than you think you would need. So like even with this, I might bring that pad down. Stuff like that, or I could use the POG 3 to freeze things. And the cool thing about the POG 3 is you could pan these voices. So like the left signal here, so it's coming stereo out of here into here, but from the HX1 it splits left and right. So I can send, theoretically, I can now send different voices to the sides. So as you can hear, the left and the right side, it's the left side is just octave up. The right side is 2 octaves up. And I can also add in that dry signal in the middle. I can add some detune here, some spread. Sound, but it's all separate layers. You see all those different layers from the POG 3 to the Key 9 Mil 9, the Ravish sitar is in there as well. The ToneX was running the color box V2s, and I had the tape shift preset I made on there, which gives me that nice vocal thing. And I also had the filter, bought in the filter on the POG 3 as well. So, you know, with the panning of the POG 3, it allows me to have that option of I can have one or certain intervals go to the Mel 9, certain intervals go to the Key 9, you know, which is very useful. You know, something I never really thought about until I had access to it. So even this, I could go, I can do this, I can do this. Keep that lower octave in the middle, pan the fifth and the, like halfway through the pan, put the dry signal in the fifth, and then all the way hard pan is the left, and is the octave up and 2 octave up. You can even use these as show effects. First of all, these pedals together is just asking to be playing for hours and hours on top of hours. Have you heard the bass talk sound on H90s? Like, yeah, I probably can. The majority of sounds I've heard from like pedals like the H9, the Chase Mood, MK2, and all that type of stuff, I can pretty much get with the Mercury X or or the combination of pedals I have already. Only thing else I'm considering for my setup right now in terms of pedals would be like a Meris LVX. They make a delay pedal too, so I would have the synth pedal, the delay pedal, and the reverb pedal in the Mercury X. But the LVX is kind of overkill. That's on the wish list. It's not necessarily a need. I needed the Mercury X. Like the Mercury X actually could create some incredible delays in there, and you get just like you get a few of the algorithms from the Mercury X and the Enzo X, you get a few of the algorithms from the LVX and the Mercury X as well. So it's like they give you a little bit of each pedal in the other pedals, so what I'm saying, you can use things that make sense together already. See, what's your MIDI pedal loop station for all these? I don't use a MIDI loop pedal station. I use this passive one here, and this passive one pretty much is, like I said, three effects loops. First effects loop is just Empress compressor. Second red one is the bass synth, Future Impact, and the blue one is the Ravish Sitar V50 V256 vocoder, and back into here and then out of here into the POG 3. HX1 splitting left and right, right to the key 9. Both of those running into the Enzo X running into the two ToneX ones, left, right. Then Mercury X, Jam Man Solo HD, and the Canvas Stereo Line Isolator. So that's the whole like chain of effects all together. And the Jam Man Solo HD, let's not forget, this joint sounds so good. That sounds like somebody's playing that live. And it sounds really good live in the show. So that was one of my biggest things. Like this thing, the Jam Man Solo sound quality is crazy. So, yeah, I recommend the Jam Man Solo for sure. Definitely been a solid pedal for me. Plus, the SD card situation allows me to save stuff. My only gripe with it is that it doesn't have regular MIDI, but it does. It can sync up multiple Jam Mans. I actually have 2 other Jam Man pedals, loopers that I'm going to be using with my band. So I can sync those up, but I can't sync it up to like the MIDI and all that stuff, which is not a big deal for me because I don't ever do that no way. Just an extra step, extra hassle. But, all right, so only thing I haven't, I already explained the MIDI. The MIDI is just everything's running from the CME H4 MIDI Pro built into under the board. Pedal chain in it to Mercury X, Enzo X, Future Impact, POG 3, HX1, and then wirelessly the Graviton M1 is connected, the MIDI Captain, and the foot switch for the Graviton M1 10-foot switch, and so yeah, that's the only stuff you can't see. And the MIDI controller is wireless as well. So all my MIDI controllers, things that's controlling MIDI, whether it be the foot switches, the keys, or this screen here, and all that's wirelessly connected to my board. So I don't have to keep this here. I can take this off of here, put it on a mic stand, put it on a phone holder, have my display right up close, and this allows me to name presets of all the pedals. So this is, and everything else. So I got all types of stuff just ready to go for looping and creating different textures. You know, the key to making your setup like usable on stage is the hard part is when you're using like these individual pedals, right? Like these, not even necessarily this one, but these three, well, four here, is you have to manually do everything with them, which means I have to remember exactly, well, you know, I have presets in here more so, but then I do the other ones, but I have to remember what different things are, where the different sounds are within this, like the number 4 preset I need to know is a certain sound. Key 9, I need to know the dynamo sound and how that's supposed to be set up. Look, you know, with the knobs compared to all the other pedals, including things like that look complicated, like the Pog 3, like with all the sliders and buttons and stuff. The presets save all of that. So I don't have to remember that. You know what I'm saying? Like these, I have to remember when I take this out the pedal board, I got to look at the Empress compressor, or I got to look at what settings I got on these two, the Mel 9, Key 9, because they don't have those presets of the settings of each individual sounds. They have the sounds as presets like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but not necessarily the settings in the exact way I have the knobs set up. So, you know, I have to remember that stuff. And on stage, you know, sometimes, I have to do that before, like setting up. And most times, I'm just going to leave it like this, and, you know, with the little things, and then, bam, go from there. You know, I use the Mel 9 for different flute sounds, orchestral sounds, and choir and stuff like that. So that's something that I have to remember, like the volume settings, you know, compared to the MIDI stuff. You set it up in something like a Graviton M1, you can name the preset and, you know, just press one thing and 5 pedals, or, you know, up to however many pedals you want to daisy chain with MIDI, change. Like that's the fact that all that stuff would just change like that with the MIDI controllers is why you would spend that extra money. So so far I recommend the Luminite Graviton M1. The CME stuff definitely works well. That, you know, these MIDI masters work very well. The MIDI jack, CME H4 MIDI Pro and the H2 MIDI Pro, both of those are really good MIDI products. You know, in terms of MIDI cables, I'm just using these little low profile cables you see here on the back of these two pedals. So these don't even stick out. You know, you don't want the ones that stick out like a keyboard. You want to get these flat, low profile ones. Let me see. These definitely change your life and save you a lot of space. So, yeah. So that's the pedal board tips for the day. You know what I'm saying? Just try to get some pedals that you really, that are really versatile. And, you know, as your setup grows, try to get pedals that have MIDI for several different reasons. Not just the presets, but the ability to control different parameters within that pedal live on stage with, like, you know, foot switches or, you know, different expression pedals and stuff. You want those options, you know what I'm saying? And with MIDI, you can take one expression pedal, maybe two, and control all 6 pedals separately, you know what I'm saying? Or no expression pedals and control all those functions with, you know, for instance, I use my MIDI captain for all my expression stuff. So when I want to freeze the Mercury X, or when I want to sustain the Enzo X, or, you know, change the filter settings on here, or, you know, change freeze or warp, or, you know, whammy style pitch bend on here, I can do all that with one expression pedal through MIDI set up through something like the Graviton M1. So makes, you know, MIDI will make your life a lot easier, but it is going to be a little price. I will say for $150, this is a steal. The foot switches are $90. That's a steal. And you can run your whole set. You really don't need a CME H4 MIDI Pro. I needed it because I'm using several different things and filtering things through certain outputs. If you're not filtering and routing a whole lot of MIDI, you don't need to get that extra step of having a H2 MIDI Pro. You can just get a Graviton M1 and the foot switches and roll from there. I suggest getting them separate instead of the M2 for the simple fact that you'll have more foot switches, you'll have 4 extra foot switches, and you'll be able to have them separate where you can have this screen closer up to you while you have the foot switch on the floor. So yeah, that's pretty much how you would do that. And then all this stuff, like I said, these Enzo X, Future Impact, and POG 3 all can be played via MIDI. So, if I want to do a key bass setup, key bass stuff, I can do that with the Future Impact or the Enzo X or the Electro Harmonics POG 3. If I want to do organ sounds, I can do that with the POG 3. If I want to do synth sounds, string sounds, all that type of stuff, futuristic sounds, Enzo X. And I got pretty much a whole keyboard set up without having any actual keyboard modules or, and it's all playable with my bass or guitar or any instrument, not just the MIDI controller or keys. That's amazing. I don't even have to take it apart if I want to just use this for keys and stuff. Like, I can just play it. That's crazy. I don't have to run an extra line or nothing. And I don't have to run to a bass amp necessarily. I can run a PA. I can have my bass amp sounds in the ToneX one. So that creating these versatile setups like this definitely will make your life easier when it comes to looping or just being on stage, doing all that different stuff. When you're not just playing bass. Just playing bass, you can do that with no pedals really, but 3 pedals and you'll have one of the best bass sounds you'll ever have. Just take three pedals and you can easily do that. But to get beyond that, to get beyond just the bass sounds, you want to get some of this type of stuff. So I definitely appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and this means the world to me. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe. Make sure if you like these type of tips, these are going to start being more exclusive to the Patreon and the paid membership on YouTube. So make sure that you check both of those options out. Check out the Patreon for my preset packs as well, and if you just want to support the channel. And check me out on all social media at the Bass Negus. And I will catch you guys later. I definitely appreciate you hanging with me. This has been another episode of All Bass Creations, Effects, Tutorials, Demos, and Review. I am the Bass Negus, Negus, and I'll catch you next time.